Tehran, winter, 1979. A city bracing for change, streets boiling with rage. The king fled, the people ready, the future a vacuum. But the final push didn't come with a bomb or a bullet. It came with a broadcast, a quiet phrase drifting through the static, a message, some believe, that triggered the collapse of a monarchy and the rise of a theocracy. Some called it poetry, others called it prophecy. But for those who understood, it was the signal. This is the story of a revolution, a radio station, and a mystery that still echoes today. You're watching Hidden in History, where shadows still speak. In the 1970s, Iran was one of the West's shining stars in the Middle East, rich in oil, armed to the teeth, and ruled by a man who called himself the King of Kings. Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi had grand visions. Modern cities, highways, nuclear power, women in miniskirts, Western music playing in cafes. But this glossy image came at a cost. Political opposition was banned. Torture was routine. Thousands disappeared under the watchful eye of Savak, the Shah's secret police. The Shah's modernization alienated traditional clerics. His corruption enraged intellectuals. His authoritarianism crushed the middle class. Meanwhile, in exile, a soft-spoken but iron-willed cleric watched and waited. Ayatollah Khomeini, forced into exile in 1964, first to Turkey, then Iraq, and finally, France. There, from a small house near Paris, he became the voice of Iran's suppressed soul. His weapon? Cassette tapes. Khomeini recorded fiery sermons denouncing the Shah, American imperialism, and the moral decay of modern Iran. His words were copied, smuggled, and distributed by hand. Tapes passed from mosque to mosque, played in living rooms, whispered in taxis. They were Iran's underground gospel. But tapes could only reach so far. The revolution needed something louder, something with reach, something global. The British Broadcasting Corporation, headquartered in London, ran a shortwave radio service in Persian. What began as wartime diplomacy in the 1940s had, by the 1970s, become one of the most trusted sources of news in Iran. Every night at 9 p.m., millions of Iranians, men and women, soldiers and students, revolutionaries and loyalists, tuned in. Why? Because their own media was censored, neutered, full of propaganda. But the BBC, it said what others wouldn't. Protest numbers, police brutality, strikes, international opinion, even quotes from Khomeini himself. To many, it was the voice of truth. To the Shah, it was treason. The Iranian monarchy accused the BBC of fanning the flames of revolution. Monarchists still claim that Britain turned against the Shah, using the BBC as a silent knife. And perhaps the strangest claim of all, that hidden inside one of those broadcasts was a secret signal. January 1979. The Shah had fled Iran. Khomeini was preparing to return, but the situation was chaotic. Armed forces were split. The streets were dangerous. Power was still uncertain. And then, one night, something happened. The BBC Persian service aired a short, seemingly poetic phrase, Fajr Amad. And dawn has come. To most listeners it was nothing, a metaphor, a line from the Quran, a poetic nod to a new era. But to some it was the spark. According to oral accounts, that phrase had been prearranged, a signal embedded in plain sight, the green light. Within hours, protests reignited, strikes resumed, Soldiers began deserting. Revolutionary groups moved in sync. It was as if the country had been waiting for a cue and received it. And just days later, on February 1st, 1979, Khomeini's plane touched down in Tehran. Millions greeted him. Tears, flowers, shouts of "Death to the Shah." 10 days later, the Pahlavi monarchy was gone. Power had passed to the revolution. But was it real? Was Fajr Amad truly a code? A call to arms? Or just a line of poetic radio filler blown out of proportion? Historians disagree. The BBC firmly denies any coordination with revolutionary forces. No documentation of a code phrase has ever been found in its archives. But monarchist exiles still insist this was no accident, that BBC Persian was infiltrated, that Britain, having grown tired of the Shah, quietly helped orchestrate his downfall. There's no hard evidence. But there are questions that still hang in the air like smoke. Why was Khomeini's rhetoric aired so freely when others were silenced? Why did protest movements move in lockstep with foreign broadcasts? And why, to this day, do both monarchists and Islamic hardliners view the BBC with deep suspicion, just for opposite reasons? In the decades since, Iran has changed in ways no one imagined. The monarchy replaced by a theocracy, Western fashion replaced by mandatory hijabs, censorship, purges, war, sanctions. Ironically, the same BBC that was once accused of aiding the revolution is now labeled by the Islamic Republic as a hostile foreign tool. BBC Persian is banned, its journalists threatened, their families harassed inside Iran. Khomeini died in 1989, but his legacy still dominates Iran's streets. The dreams of freedom held by millions in 1979 are still unfulfilled. And that phrase, Fajr Amad, it's now part of state propaganda. The 10 days of dawn are celebrated each year. But whether the original phrase was a coincidence or a secret broadcast signal to tip the scales of history remains an open question. A whisper, a phrase, a possible code hidden in the world's most trusted broadcaster. History turns on strange hinges. Sometimes, revolutions begin not with gunfire, but with a signal carried on the wind. You've been watching Hidden in History. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe the channel. This will help us to create more videos.